So the question for me always is, how are we going to tell this story of life on the street in 2021 and forward? What is life on the street? How can we present that with a fresh perspective? Simple question, not so simple answer, I think. Other than the still image, 1/200th of a second, it captures the Cartier-Bresson perfect moment. I think the charm of street photography is the idea of the decisive moment, of capturing a still image using a Leica with a 35mm lens or with a 50mm lens. And I think at the core, the concept or the idea of observing life on the street is an incredible one. It's the one form of photography, I believe, that is purely authentic. What you see, what you experience when walking around in public places is where people are themselves, where their true authenticity comes through. And I think that's the power of street photography. I think that's what funnels a lot of young people and people who just want to do photography for the joy of it. That's what funnels them into street photography. And I think any one of us who is out there with a camera on the streets, I think that's what we love most. It's the freedom of being able to just walk around and not have any true goal in mind, not have necessarily a plan, but just taking in whatever's around us. Taking that information in, taking in feelings, expressions, the candidness of real life. I think that's the attraction. But how do we actually come back and all of those senses, all of those smells and those sounds and the movement, the leading to the picture, what comes before, what comes after, the context of the picture. How do we present that in the best way possible? In a way that's going to appeal, attract an audience or someone who is maybe trying to understand or appreciate what street photographers are doing. There's so much street photography out there and so few people who truly understand what we're doing as street photographers. Why do we do this? What's the attraction? Why would I spend an entire afternoon or the whole day or the whole week walking around in the city looking for a picture? Why do we do that? So how do we express the joy of street photography? How do we give street photography a fresh look? I don't have an answer for that. I have absolutely no answer for that. I don't mean by making a new type of photograph, a new type of still photograph, but how do we present life on the street in a different way, utilizing today's technology, today's capabilities? Because photography really has been always, if we study the art and history of photography, we know that photography has always been an evolution related to technology. And the way we've always been able to express ourselves as photographers, if we go back to the times of the daguerreotype into wet plate collodion and film, and of course now we're into digital, and then the advent of the internet and social media and Instagram, and It just goes, it's always been an evolution in how we see the world and how we present it and what tools we use to present it. The question in my mind as well is, what tools can we use today that are valid and that we have at our disposal that can help us to tell the story of life on the street? So many ideas brewing through my mind of, am I approaching it the right way? Should I just be, walking around with a film camera and taking, using Ilford FP4 or Kodak Tri-X and going back to my darkroom from the 70s and developing film, and it's very romantic, right? It's beautiful. I love it. It was my start in photography. I love the darkroom, the feeling of seeing that wet print show up in the developer, the sponging off the film when it came out of the canister after development and fixing. The smell of the chemistry. There's all that history, that romanticism that comes with what photography means for us as photographers. But if we're going to look at this as artists, if we're going to look at the genre of street photography as an artist, we've done the work of exploring old processes and etc. But the real question is, what can we do that's new today? What can we do that's different today? How can we express it in a new way based on the fact that we are in 2021? And we do have this pandemic that's all around us. And people are spending most of their time on a phone or on a computer, and they're overwhelmed with media. Galleries aren't even open. What are we going to do to present our work? Are we going to wait for galleries to open up before we can present our work? Are we going to succumb to social media and just kind of post our stuff on Instagram and people will just flick through it at 40 images per minute or 60 images per minute and get a glance of a color here and a face there and, slap a like on it or slap a heart on it and move on? Is that how we want to present our work? So I guess if we're serious about what we're doing, we have to ask ourselves these questions. If the purpose is just to go out and have fun and just do what we're comfortable with, then that's cool. But, if you're going to be an artist with it, then I recommend you step outside your comfort zone. We all do. We step outside our comfort zones and we give this stuff some thought, because it's really critical if we're going to develop ourselves as artists. We're going to advance as artists. The other thing I want to say is you really do have to let go of algorithms and corporations that have their own interests in mind. Your work is posted somewhere, and the only way that it's going to get the admiration of others is if it follows a corporation's algorithm. You have to stop thinking about that. That can never fulfill you. It's instant gratification that eventually becomes very toxic and has no bearing on your artistic endeavor as an artist. It has no impact. It has no relevance to what you want to do or what you are trying to achieve. I'm not a huge believer in that idea that there are rules to photography. You know, I've heard even some iconic photographers say that street photography has nothing to do with portraiture. It really is all only about candid moments. So again, anyone who speaks like that with full respect, I just turn the other way, because when somebody's able to label something and put rules on anything, it doesn't say much about the fact that if you approach the creation of anything as an art form, you can't put any rules on that thing. As soon as you start to label something and put rules on it, it limits what can be said, what can be expressed. And that's not what artists need. We need to have carte blanche. We need to forget all that. We need to learn it all and then forget it. You know, I never forget the words of Picasso, how he expressed that, it takes a lot of knowledge to then ultimately forget it all and become a child again. In the way you look at an artistic endeavor, you need to think like a child. What does a child have? A child doesn't have limits. A child doesn't set labels or have labels on anything they look at or see or listen to or smell. They just take it all in through their senses in a raw form. And I think as artists, that's what we need to do. We need to just take it in as a raw form and not look at that car and say that's just a car, or not look at that bench and say that's just a bench. But what more is it? What more can we say? Those types of thoughts, I think, are healthy, because they will allow us to branch into a deeper form of creativity, right? To get into our mind space and really think about how we can say something differently or uniquely with our photography.